Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talking Wolves YouTube channel with me, Gully. Going to be giving you a tactical breakdown of what I would describe as the most impressive performance of the season for so far. Gary O'Neill's men overcoming Fulham away from home with a 4-1 victory, which I think we're all really, really pleased about. And I'm definitely pleased to be able to actually speak to you about something in such a positive manner for the first time probably this season. I know performances have been probably better than our results have shown for the most part, but it was nice to kind of knit it all together with a really, really emphatic victory in the end. We know individually that Mateus Cunha was really at the forefront of all of this, as well as a couple of other players, but with the backdrop of difficulties in fielding a defence, missing three centre halves that would ostensibly be starting the game for us potentially. It was obviously interesting to see what kind of setup Gary O'Neill would go with, and in that adversity, he came up with a solution that really was in keeping with what we'd been doing for most of pre-season. I personally think the setup from pre-season, which I've done a video on, you can go back and have a look at what we did specifically during the Stateside Cup when we looked so impressive, and we had so many kind of promising things to look forward to as the season began. Many of those things kind of came through in this game as kind of reverting back to what O'Neill had developed throughout that pre-season period, and which he dropped pretty much instantly after the 6-2 defeat to Chelsea, which I thought was a little bit premature, and there's many reasons as to why he would have done that. But just to kind of reiterate, I guess, what I mean by that, I'm going to bring up a little bit of a tactics board here just to show, especially in possession, this is what Gary O'Neill is looking for from his team. It's a back three with Ryan Aït-Nouri specifically tucked in on the left-hand side, but he has the ability to kind of join in the attack with usually someone like Andre potentially slotting in there. So we are always maintaining that kind of back three in rest defence, a couple of players ahead of the ball to kind of build play, and really focusing on making sure this left-hand side of the pitch with these four players in close proximity to try and take advantage of their qualities and create chances. Obviously, with Cunha kind of at the apex of it all. Strand Larson really important in terms of pinning that defensive line and keeping them honest. And Nelson Semedo doing a really good job for us in terms of holding that width on the right hand side and allowing the team to be spread nice and wide and making the pitch as big as possible. So yeah, just to kind of get into the game itself, got a number of examples of where this really kind of bore out. What I'll do first of all, though, is obviously there's lots to talk about whether we're playing a back three or a back four. Out of possession, it was definitely a back four on this occasion, which was interesting given obviously that Mario Lemina had stepped into the defensive line, but I guess O'Neill took the view that if you're missing defenders, then you want to try and be on the front foot so as not to force them into being pressurised too much. Again, that in possession setup evidenced here as well. Bit of a staggered pivot here where João Gomes has received the ball off the defence and looking to play forward. And you can see across the pitch the most wide players pointing out here are Nelson Semedo on that right hand side and Rodrigo Gomez on that left hand side, with Cunha kind of slotting into that half space on the left. Jean-Marie Bellegarde tucking in a little bit, and Strand Larson giving that defence a little bit of an issue in terms of making sure they're not pushing up too high and with a little bit of a threat in behind. So you can see straight away all those kind of tropes that I've spoken about previously, all being evident in this situation. In terms of the first goal, this is where some of those things really kind of bore fruit, and I think particular attention needs to be paid to Rodrigo Gomez's position here. Obviously, we're playing against the back four, so trying to stretch them across the pitch it creates those kind of spaces, which obviously Mateus Cunha takes advantage of ultimately. But a couple of things I think that are really important to know. Obviously, I've mentioned Rodrigo Gomez holding the width here. He's got Kenny Tete's attention. I don't think he's in a great position in general, Tete, but if Rodrigo Gomez wasn't holding that width, don't think Tete is able to kind of cover inside a little bit more and is not as distracted and leaving that space in between himself and Anderson. But the other thing that is really important here is that Cunha hasn't gone and stood along the front line, because if he was there, Tete would probably cover in a little bit more, stay a bit narrower, allowing that pass to come in potentially to Rodrigo Gomez. Obviously, that's an ambitious ball in itself as well. Um, but Cunha being just off the back of the midfield here and not picked up in any way by a midfielder. Not that there's necessarily a pass on from Lemina into his feet, but then again, like I say, creating that space for Cunha to make the run into, and the rest obviously we know about with incredible quality of pass, which I don't think I've necessarily seen from Lemina before. But just such a clinically executed move in terms of the pass, the touch, and one thing I really wanted to stress was it wasn't an absolute bang on perfect first touch from Cunha. The second touch with his thigh is actually what takes it away from Joachim Andersen getting back in to make a challenge and then setting the ball for him to finish. How many times have you seen a player take that touch, it bounces up, and they're waiting for it to come down so they can finish it, but it doesn't get down quick enough, and a defender comes and nips in, or a keeper comes and cleans them out to stop them from scoring. Really, really brilliant goal. Um, the the point I made about the left hand side as well, it's very much the strong side of the pitch. I mean, it kind of gravitated around Cunha, obviously trying to make sure he gets the space that he needs. The two people that are really key to that are players like Rodrigo Gomez and Strand Larsen, who are pushing against the defensive line to make runs in behind, which forces them back and allows Cunha to pick up the pockets. And the other player that's really key to that as well is João Gomez. He's always pressing high, available to recover the ball if it's a pressing situation, and building that specific tight space, but also just a good player to have around there in terms of his ability to play out of pressure and find Cunha in those little pockets. He had a really, really good game on this occasion. And you can see in these two scenarios here, we've picked up the ball around the halfway line on the left, and we've made very, very promising situations from them both. The second one would have been a really unbelievable goal. Ryan Nuri obviously joining in as well. I think O'Neill really appreciates his ability to play close to Cunha and get them two linking up together. It's been a real kind of boon for O'Neill, the way he's managed to get them to be really productive as well. But I think obviously we did end up scoring a goal from that channel. And you can see straight away again, Ait Nouri, João Gomez, Mateus Cunha. Jean-René Bellegarde has actually tucked in a little bit more, but you've got Rodrigo Gomez as well, out on the touchline, getting chalk on his boots. And those players, again, close proximity together, put a lovely move into getting João Gomez into a goal-scoring position, which I think is obviously a bit more of a ploy now. We saw him score against Crystal Palace. We've seen he made a run into the box for Lemina to score against Newcastle, where he did that wonderful dummy to allow him to take an easy chance. I think O'Neill has obviously unlocked a little bit of a part of his game that we didn't necessarily see when he first joined the club. So really, really promising, and the finish was unerring again when he got the chance on his left foot. Just to again illustrate that point around the left side really being the focus for us. These four guys just absolutely dominating that space. You can see with the heat map, much more progression and touches in advanced areas down the left as opposed to the right. Obviously with Semedo and Bellegarde, very conscious of Anthony Robinson and his influence as well on the game, and he did get in quite often to cause us issues, but also just being a little bit more circumspect. And what you'd also say is Semedo can be a little bit disappointing in the final third. He had a really good situation to put a cross in early in the game, and Bellegarde as well, not probably a natural winger, so maybe to be expected. But again, Cunha being in that kind of left half space, that's where he naturally wants to be, where he does his best work, and trying to build space around him so that he can go and do damage. That's what it's all about, really. And this touch map here on the right hand side is just specifically Ait Nouri, João Gomez, Rodrigo Gomez, and Mateus Cunha. Obviously, a hell of a lot of activity down there, but I think the point really to make here is the amount of shots on goal that have come from those four players on their own, and the amount of productivity in advanced areas just goes to show how exceptional they were in this game. One player I did want to point out as well, Ryan Aït-Nouri. I thought this was one of his best games as a Wolves player, without being really eye-catching like he can be. Defensively, he really took responsibility, and you can see that in some of the numbers that he posted in terms of defensive metrics. Um, One thing we probably wouldn't necessarily associate with him is his ability in the air, but he made more headed clearances than any other player on the pitch. He won more aerial duels than anybody else on the pitch. Other clearances in total, obviously top of that rank as well, and number of block crosses. When Adama Traore came on, he got no change out of him whatsoever. This idea that Aït-Nouri can't defend in a back four it's a bit of a myth. I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that he is capable in all phases of play, and Gary O'Neill wants him to be involved in all phases of play. And you saw him obviously defending really well. You saw him building play. You saw him getting into the final third to almost put a chance on for Strand Larsen. You see all those things coming through in this game, and when it all gets knitted together for Aït-Nouri, he is genuinely a world-class operator. He's so good. But I think it's taken him a little bit of time to just get to grips with what O'Neill's asking of him, which clearly in the Chelsea game went totally awry. He had a massive head loss at the start of that second half, which was really disappointing. But I think you're starting to see a bit more maturity around what the job he has. Obviously, he did make a mistake in the first half where he lost the ball, and then we ended up conceding with Alex Iwobi curling one in from the edge of the box. But I think because he is a maverick, because he is a player capable of winning your matches almost from these kind of positions, you have to lean into his abilities. If you had Ryan Aït-Nouri and played him like an orthodox left back, you're just not utilising his skill set in the correct way for me. So whilst there might be the odd occasion where you get that, I think the pros outweigh the cons entirely, and he just needs to tidy up a little bit in terms of turning away from pressure. But we also know we love seeing him do it. We know that he's a really, really capable guy, and that it's the kind of thing that you just basically pay your season ticket for. You're seeing someone like Ryan Aït-Nouri in action. So looking forward to Bournemouth. We feel a hell of a lot better about ourselves now, don't we? So be interesting to see what happens with the return of any of the centre halves, with Dawson, Bueno potentially being fit, and what Gary decides to do. But it's a good dilemma to have, and hopefully that balance that he struck and that synergy that seems to run throughout the team against Fulham is maintained in another tough game, but one we absolutely can win as well. So fingers crossed for a positive result on Saturday.